We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Thomas Harrison's boots crunched on scattered gravel as he strode across the construction site of his latest project, a luxury apartment complex that would soon dominate the Boston skyline. His muscular frame, hardened from years of hands-on work, commanded attention as he moved through the organized chaos of machinery and workers. "Morning, boss," called out Mike from the crane. Thomas acknowledged him with a sharp nod, his steel-gray eyes already scanning the day's progress. Every worker knew that nod. It meant Thomas had registered their presence and would remember every detail of their work. "Rodriguez." Thomas's voice cut through the construction noise. "That foundation support doesn't match the specifications." He pointed to a recently installed beam, his fingers steady and accusatory. The foreman rushed over, papers clutched in his hand. "But sir," the supplier said. "I don't care what they said," Thomas interrupted, his voice low but carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Get it replaced. Now." "I built this company from nothing to 50 million by never accepting second best. You know my standards?" Rodriguez nodded quickly, already reaching for his radio. In 15 years of building Harrison Construction, Thomas had never compromised on quality. It was this ruthless attention to detail that had earned him his reputation and his fortune. His phone buzzed. Peter Walsh, his old Marines buddy turned police detective, was calling. Thomas smiled slightly. Peter had been there from the beginning, helping secure those crucial first contracts when others wouldn't take a chance on a former Marine with nothing but determination and expertise. "Pete," Thomas answered, moving away from the noise. "What's the security report?" "Clean as usual, Tom. But listen, something's been bothering me about the Madison Avenue project. Mind if I stop by later?" Thomas checked his watch, solid gold. A reminder of his first $1 million contract. "Make it lunch. That diner on 4th. He ended the call just as Tim O'Connor, his equipment manager, approached. Tim's expression was troubled, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by something more serious. "Mr. Harrison, got a minute? There's something you should see." They moved to the site office, a simple but organized space that reflected Thomas's practical nature. Tim pulled up security footage on his tablet. "This is from last Tuesday, 2 a.m. The video showed an unmarked van entering the Brookline site. And here's Thursday, different site, same time frame. Another van, similar pattern. They're using valid access codes, sir." Thomas's jaw tightened. "How many sites?" "For so far. Always late night, always with proper codes." Thomas stood, his presence filling the small office. "Review every access log for the past 3 months. Cross-reference with our supplier deliveries. I want to know every vehicle that's entered our sites after hours." "Yes, sir. There's one more thing." Tim hesitated. "The security system shows the codes being entered manually, not by key cards. Someone's giving out our codes." Thomas's expression hardened. He built his empire through trust and personal oversight, knowing every worker, checking every contract, visiting every site. The idea of someone betraying that trust awakened something dark in his eyes. "Keep this between us for now. Set up new cameras, ones they don't know about. I want faces." As Tim left, Thomas's phone lit up with a text from Rebecca, his wife of 20 years. She was requesting money for another school charity event. He authorized the transfer without much thought. The private school where she taught, where their daughter Amanda was a senior, was worth every penny of its steep tuition. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of inspections and meetings. Thomas maintained his hands-on approach, catching details others missed, demanding excellence with an intensity that made younger workers nervous. By lunch, he'd fired 2 suppliers and approved the plans for 3 new projects. At the diner, Peter was already waiting in their usual booth. The detective had aged well, keeping the same military bearing they'd shared in the Marines. They ordered without looking at menus. They'd been having the same lunch for 15 years. "Talk to me about Madison Avenue," Thomas said, stirring his coffee. Peter leaned forward, keeping his voice low. "You remember that bid? Came in 20% under your nearest competitor. Should have been impossible. I checked their numbers myself. Exactly. Been doing some digging, unofficial, of course. That company? They're connected to three others that recently won municipal contracts, all with impossibly low bids. Thomas's eyes narrowed. Contract rigging? What's that way? But here's the interesting part. They're all losing money on the actual projects. It's like they don't care about the profit. Money laundering? Peter shrugged. Maybe. But why Target Construction specifically? And why Boston? Thomas was about to respond when his phone buzzed again. A text from Amanda. Dad, don't worry about Cornell visit next week. Mom's handling it. He frowned. Amanda had been acting strange lately, avoiding his questions about college plans. He'd attributed it to typical teenage behavior, but something felt off. Your daughter's still headed to Cornell? Peter asked, noting his friend's expression. That's the plan. Full ride, if her grades hold up. Thomas's pride was evident in his voice. Rebecca's been handling most of the college stuff. I've been busy with the new developments. Peter nodded, but something flickered in his eyes. The same instinct that had kept them alive in combat. How is Rebecca? Haven't seen her at the last few poker nights. Busy with school committees. Some new charity initiative with the board. Thomas waved it off, his mind already back on the contract issue. About Madison Avenue, I want names. Anyone involved in those bids. Already working on it. But Tom. Peter hesitated. Be careful who you trust with this. Something doesn't feel right. Thomas's laugh was sharp. When have you known me to trust easily, Pete? I verify everything, you know that. They finished lunch discussing lighter topics. Old Marine stories. Peter's recent promotion to the Financial Crimes Unit. The Bruins' chances this season. But as Thomas drove back to the construction site, his friend's warning echoed in his mind. He spent the afternoon in meetings with project managers, reviewing schedules and budgets with his characteristic thoroughness. Every decision, every signature carried the weight of his personal guarantee. Harrison Construction's reputation was built on his word, and Thomas Harrison's word was iron. Later, reviewing security footage in his office, he noticed a pattern in the after-hours visits. They coincided with school board meetings. The same nights Rebecca came home late from her committee work. He filed this information away, his Marine training kicking in. Gather intelligence first. Act only when you have all the facts. His phone buzzed one last time, Rebecca again. Don't wait up. Late meeting with James about the fundraiser. Thomas set the phone down slowly. James Cooper, the wealthy school board member. Something about that name had been nagging at him lately, but he couldn't place why. He closed the security footage and pulled up the Madison Avenue contract records. Time to do what he did best. Verify everything personally. Trust no one's word but his own. As he worked, his expression grew harder, more focused. Anyone watching would have recognized the look. It was the same expression he'd worn in combat, planning an ambush. Thomas Harrison hadn't built an empire by being naive, and he hadn't survived combat by ignoring his instincts. Something was wrong in his carefully constructed world, and he would find out what. Those who knew him best would have recognized the dangerous glint in his eye. It was the look of a predator who'd caught the first scent of prey. Rebecca Harrison's transformation had been so gradual that most people hadn't noticed. But Marge, the school's elderly receptionist, had watched it all unfold with quiet disapproval. From her desk, she observed Rebecca's evolution from dedicated teacher to something else entirely. Another late meeting, Mrs. Harrison? Marge asked, noting the time, 7:30 p.m. Rebecca adjusted her designer blazer, a recent addition to her wardrobe. School board business, Marge. You know how it is? Her smile was perfect, practiced. Too perfect. Of course. Mr. Cooper's already in the conference room. Rebecca's heels clicked down the empty hallway, echoing against lockers that had seen generations of students come and go. James Cooper waited inside, his Italian suit and carefully maintained silver hair marking him as old money. The others will be here soon, he said, not looking up from his phone. David's bringing the updated contracts. Rebecca perched on the edge of the conference table, her skirt riding up just enough to be noticeable. Thomas hasn't suspected anything. He's too busy with his precious construction sites to notice what's happening in his own home. James finally looked up, his eyes cold and calculating. And Amanda? Playing her part perfectly. She's got him convinced about Cornell. Rebecca's laugh was soft, cruel. He's so proud of his little girl. If he knew she'd actually failed half her classes. The door opened again, admitting David Reynolds, the real estate developer. His usual confidence seemed shaken. We need to talk about the timing. Harrison Construction just underbid us on the Riverside project. Impossible, Rebecca snapped. I gave you their exact numbers. Well, Thomas changed them at the last minute. He's been personally reviewing everything lately. The room fell silent as Michael Bennett, the athletic director, entered. His muscular frame filled the doorway as he closed and locked the door behind him. We have a problem, Michael announced without preamble. Thomas was asking questions about the equipment deliveries. Rebecca's composure slipped for a moment. What kind of questions? The kind that could expose everything. He's noticed the after-hours activity. James Cooper's expression darkened. This is why I said we needed to be more careful. Your husband's not as stupid as you think, Rebecca. He sees what he wants to see, Rebecca countered. 20 years of marriage has taught me that much. Thomas Harrison is a simple man. Give him a construction site to manage, and he's happy. The door opened again, admitting Richard Kane, still in his surgeon scrubs, and Stephen Phillips, whose expensive suit marked him as clearly as his hedge fund success. Speaking of your husband, Stephen said, settling into a chair, he's been asking questions at City Hall. My sources say he's looking into the bid patterns. Rebecca's confidence wavered for the first time. That's impossible. He trusts me completely. Does he? Richard Kane's voice was sharp. Because my wife says he's been calling the school, checking Amanda's attendance records. The group exchanged worried glances. Their plan had seemed perfect. Use Rebecca's position at the school and her connections through Amanda to manipulate contracts, skim money from construction projects, and build a network of influence that would benefit them all. Each man thought he was special to Rebecca, never realizing he was just another piece in her game. We need to accelerate the timeline, James decided. Stephen, how soon can you move those funds? A week, maybe 2. But if Thomas is already suspicious. Rebecca stood, pacing the room. He's not suspicious. He's thorough. It's what made him successful. But he'd never suspect his own wife and daughter. Michael Bennett laughed darkly. You sure about that? Because he's installed new security cameras at 3 sites this week alone. The room fell silent again, each person lost in their own calculations. They'd all benefited from the arrangement. James with his school board contracts, David with his insider construction information, Michael with his kickbacks from athletic equipment suppliers, Richard with his medical supply deals, and Stephen with his political connections. Maybe we should cut our losses, David suggested carefully. Before this gets out of hand, Rebecca's response was immediate and vicious. We're not cutting anything. I've spent too long setting this up. Thomas Harrison might be good at building things, but I'm better at destroying them. She turned to James Cooper, her first lover and still her most reliable ally. Tell them about Amanda. James smiled slowly. The Cornell acceptance? Completely fabricated. I had my people create every document, every transcript. Thomas's precious daughter isn't going anywhere except maybe community college. If she's lucky, she's been helping us, Rebecca continued, copying his documents, recording his calls, tracking his schedule. She hates him as much as I do. And if he finds out? Richard asked. He won't. Amanda knows which side her bread is buttered on. Besides, Rebecca's smile turned cruel. She's not even his daughter. Right, James? The revelation hung in the air, adding another layer to their web of deceit. James Cooper's expression remained neutral, but there was a gleam of satisfaction in his eyes. We need to be careful, Stephen warned. One wrong move, and this all falls apart. It won't, Rebecca insisted. I know Thomas. He's predictable and methodical. He'll never see this coming until it's too late. The meeting continued late into the night, each participant adding their own complications to the scheme. None of them noticed the small red light blinking in the corner of the room. A new security camera, installed that very morning by a very thorough man who trusted no one's word but his own. Thomas's knee ached as he pulled into his driveway, a reminder of an old construction injury that still bothered him on long days. The house was lit up like a Christmas tree, another school fundraiser in full swing. He'd planned to work late, But something about Tim's worried expression when reporting more suspicious deliveries had driven him home early. He entered through the side door, avoiding the cluster of luxury cars and their wealthy owners in the main driveway. The sounds of the fundraiser drifted from the main rooms. Laughing, clinking glasses, the murmur of Boston's elite discussing their latest charitable endeavors. Thomas moved silently through his own home, years of Marine training making him naturally stealthy despite his size. He was heading to his office to review some security footage when he heard voices drifting from inside. Voices that shouldn't have been there. "Your father is such a useless joke." Rebecca's voice dripped with contempt. He didn't even notice I had wild nights with his entire friend group. Thomas froze, his hand inches from the door handle. 20 years of military and business discipline kept him from bursting in immediately. Intelligence gathering first, always. Dad's the biggest loser in town. Amanda's voice, his daughter's voice, hit him like a physical blow. "He's so weak. Mom had to find 6 other men. I'm ashamed to share his last name. I wish he'd disappear." The laughter that followed was cruel, conspiratorial. Thomas stood absolutely still, processing each word with the same analytical precision he applied to construction projects. "Did you get those documents I asked for?" A male voice, James Cooper. "Everything from his private safe," Amanda replied proudly. "The fool still uses the same combination, my birthday. As if I'm even his to begin with." "Careful," Rebecca cautioned, though her voice held more amusement than warning. "We still need him in place for a few more weeks. The contracts aren't all transferred yet." "I don't see why we can't just take everything now," Amanda complained. "He's too stupid to stop us?" "Patience, sweetheart." James Cooper again. "Your mother's plan is working perfectly. By the time Thomas Harrison realizes what's happening, he'll have nothing left. Not his company, not his reputation, and certainly not his family." Speaking of family, Rebecca's voice turned mocking. "Remember when he bought you that expensive art set for Christmas, Amanda? He was so proud when you said you wanted to be an architect like him. Little did he know you were just copying his building plans for David." More laughter. Thomas remained motionless, his mind cataloging every word, every implication. His expression hadn't changed, but something had shifted behind his eyes. Something cold and calculating that would have made these plotters very nervous if they could have seen it. "The best part," Amanda continued, "is how he keeps bragging about Cornell. Dad's so excited about his brilliant daughter following in his footsteps. He doesn't even question why he's never seen any actual acceptance letters." "Your father sees what he wants to see," Rebecca said dismissively. "That's what makes him weak. He built his precious company on trust and personal connections. Fool doesn't realize that trust is just another word for vulnerability." "When do we tell him?" Amanda asked, eager cruelty in her voice. "I want to see his face when he realizes everything was a lie. His perfect wife, his loving daughter, his trusted friends, all working together to destroy him." "Soon," James promised. "Once the last contracts are transferred and the offshore accounts are set up. A few more weeks at most. I've got his entire schedule mapped out," Amanda said proudly. "Every meeting, every site visit. I know exactly where he'll be and when. David and Michael use it to coordinate the late-night deliveries." Rebecca's voice turned thoughtful. "He's been asking questions about those deliveries." Tim reported. "Tim's an idiot," James interrupted. "He's loyal to Thomas, but he's not smart enough to piece anything together. Besides, all the documentation is perfect, thanks to our friends in the permit office. And the school board's fully behind us?" Amanda asked. "Naturally. Your mother's been very persuasive with key members." James's tone carried a suggestive edge that made Amanda giggle. "Between Richard's medical supply contracts and Stephen's political connections, we've got everything covered." Thomas listened as they discussed more details. The fake Cornell acceptance, the forged transcripts, the manipulated construction bids. Each revelation was another piece of intelligence, carefully filed away in his tactical assessment of the situation. "We should get back to the party," Rebecca finally said. "People will notice we're missing." "One last thing," James added. "The new security cameras Thomas installed, Michael's taking care of them tonight. Should look like routine equipment failure." Their footsteps moved toward the door. Thomas melted back into the shadows of the hallway, his movements silent and practiced. He watched as they emerged, his wife, his daughter, and James Cooper, all laughing together like conspirators in a private joke, which he now knew they were. Thomas waited until they'd rejoined the party before entering his office. Everything looked untouched, but as trained eye spotted the slight disarray in his desk drawers, amateur work sloppy. He opened his safe, already knowing what he'd find. The documents were there, but slightly out of order. Amanda had been careless, overconfident. He sat at his desk, expression unchanging as he powered up his laptop. The security footage from his home office would have captured everything. He'd installed those cameras weeks ago, when his instincts first started firing warnings. A text lit up his phone. Peter Walsh asking about meeting tomorrow to discuss the Madison Avenue situation. Thomas typed a brief response, his mind already mapping out the steps ahead. In combat, the most dangerous moment was right after discovering an ambush. The key was to let the enemy think their trap was still secret while you planned your counterattack. The party continued downstairs, the sounds of Boston's elite mixing with the laughter of his betrayers. Thomas began to work, his movements precise and methodical. First, he accessed the construction site security logs, cross-referencing them with Amanda's school schedule. Then he pulled up the bank records for the school's charitable foundation, where Rebecca had been so active lately. By midnight, the party had wound down. He heard Rebecca's exaggerated laugh as she said goodbye to the last guests, playing her role as the perfect hostess. Amanda's voice drifted up, making plans for the weekend with her mother's social circle. Thomas continued working, his expression never changing. To an observer, he might have looked like any businessman catching up on late-night paperwork. But behind his eyes, something else was happening. Something cold and calculated and absolutely ruthless. The Thomas Harrison that his enemies thought they knew. The trusting, methodical builder who valued loyalty and personal connections was only half the story. They'd forgotten, or never known, about the other Thomas Harrison. The Marine who'd survived ambushes and planned counterattacks. The man who'd built an empire by anticipating and crushing his competition. They thought him weak because he valued trust. They were about to learn that a man who values trust is the most dangerous enemy when that trust is betrayed. He worked through the night, gathering intelligence, connecting dots, laying the groundwork for what would come next. In his mind, Rebecca's mocking words played on repeat. Trust is just another word for vulnerability. She was wrong. Trust, like any tool, could be a weapon in the right hands. And Thomas Harrison had spent a lifetime learning how to use every tool at his disposal. The first light of dawn was creeping over Boston when he finally closed his laptop. In a few hours, Rebecca would wake up and continue her schemes. Amanda would go to school and spy for her conspirators. The corrupt board members and false friends would go about their business, thinking their plan was still secret. Let them think that for now. Thomas Harrison had built his empire by being patient, thorough, and absolutely merciless when crossed. Now he would show them exactly why crossing him was the last mistake they'd ever make. He stood, his bad knee protesting the long night, and looked out over the city he'd helped build. Somewhere out there, his enemies were sleeping peacefully, dreaming of their triumph. They had no idea they'd just woken a dragon. Thomas Harrison's office phone rang at exactly 7 a.m. Peter Walsh's voice came through, terse and professional. "I've assembled the team you requested. We meet in 1 hour. Location?" Thomas kept his voice neutral, aware that his office might be compromised. "That old warehouse where we planned the Madison Avenue project. The one with the broken security cameras." Thomas smiled grimly at the code. Their old Marine safe house, now converted to a private meeting space. "Copy that." The warehouse sat in an industrial district, its exterior deliberately shabby. Thomas pulled his Range Rover alongside Peter's unmarked police car. 2 other vehicles were already parked inside, a modest sedan and a black SUV with tinted windows. Inside, Peter had assembled exactly who Thomas needed. Maria Ramirez, the forensic accountant who'd helped uncover contractor fraud on previous projects, stood examining financial documents spread across a makeshift table. Brian Foster, a private investigator known for his discretion and ruthless efficiency, leaned against a wall, his tablet displaying surveillance footage. "Let's begin," Thomas commanded, his voice carrying the same authority that had built a construction empire. Everything said here stays here. Anyone who breaks that rule will wish they'd never heard the name Harrison. Maria spoke first, her fingers dancing across her laptop keyboard. I've been analyzing the school's renovation contracts. The numbers don't add up. Look at these change orders. She turned the screen, showing a complex web of financial transactions. They're laundering money through construction projects, using inflated costs and fake supply orders. How much? Thomas's question cut through the air. Millions. They're skimming about 20% off each project. But here's the clever part. They're hiding it in plain sight by spreading it across multiple accounts and legitimate-looking expenses. Brian Foster stepped forward, his movements precise and controlled. I've been tracking their meetings. Your wife meets James Cooper every Tuesday and Thursday, allegedly for school board business. He played a video showing Rebecca entering an upscale hotel. She has a regular rotation, different man each day of the week. Thomas watched the footage without expression, his mind cataloging every detail. Peter, the detective pulled out a thick file. The corruption goes deeper than we thought. Those city contracts you were suspicious about? They're all connected to your wife's lovers. James Cooper's been manipulating school board funds. David Reynolds is using insider information to rig bids. And Stephen Phillips is laundering money through fake charitable donations. Show me everything, Thomas demanded. For the next 3 hours, they pieced together the betrayal. Maria's financial analysis revealed a complex web of kickbacks and fraudulent contracts. Brian's surveillance documented the extent of Rebecca's infidelity and the conspiracy's meetings. Peter's police contacts provided evidence of broader corruption involving city officials and contract manipulation. There's more, Brian said, pulling up new footage. The school's maintenance supervisor, Frank Murphy, reached out. He's been keeping records of after-hours meetings in empty classrooms. And Sarah Thompson, the IT specialist, recovered deleted emails. They proved the whole group was coordinating to manipulate construction bids. Thomas absorbed each piece of information with military precision. What about Amanda? Maria hesitated before answering. Your daughter's involvement, it's extensive. She's been accessing your office after hours, copying documents. The security logs show her using your private codes to let others into construction sites. Show me patterns, Thomas ordered. Every meeting, every transaction, every betrayal. I want it all mapped out. They worked methodically, building a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy. Thomas stood at the center, directing their efforts with cold efficiency. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about dismantling a corrupt network piece by piece. Your wife's careful, Brian noted. She's compartmentalized everything. Each man thinks he's special, doesn't know about the others. Makes them easier to control. And harder to trace, Maria added. The financial trails are deliberately complex. Without inside access to the school's records, we might never have caught it. Peter spread out a new set of documents. The construction site deliveries? They're moving more than just supplies. Look at these manifests. Quantities don't match the actual deliveries. They're using your own company to move something else. Thomas examined the papers, his expression hardening. Cross-reference these deliveries with the school board meeting dates. Find out what they're really moving. As they worked, Thomas's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Working late again tonight. School board emergency meeting. He showed it to Brian, who nodded. I'll have surveillance in place. We'll get photos of everyone who attends. Peter, Thomas turned to his old friend. I need access to every city contract involving these men for the past 5 years. Official and unofficial. Already on it. My contact in the financial crimes unit is pulling records now. But Tom, Peter hesitated. When this breaks, it's going to be big. A lot of powerful people will go down. Thomas's response was cold. Good. Let them burn. Maria looked up from her computer. Mr. Harrison, there's something else. The school renovation budgets. They're being used to cover more than just kickbacks. There are regular payments to a private investigation firm. They've been watching you. They think they're hunting me. Thomas's laugh held no humor. They don't realize they're the prey. The meeting continued as they built their case, piece by damning piece. Thomas coordinated their efforts with military precision, assigning tasks, and analyzing data. Each new revelation only strengthened his resolve. "One more thing," Brian said as they prepared to leave. "Your daughter's been meeting privately with James Cooper. Not just at school, other locations too." Thomas didn't flinch. "Document everything. Every meeting, every conversation. I want to know exactly how deep this goes." As the team dispersed, Peter stayed behind. "You know this is personal for them. They're not just after your money. They want to destroy you completely." "I know." Thomas's voice was steady. "That's their mistake. They think because I value loyalty, I'm weak. They're about to learn the difference between a man who values trust and a man who's afraid to lose it." The evidence was mounting, each piece fitting into a larger puzzle of betrayal. Thomas Harrison, the man who'd built an empire on personal oversight and trust, was now using those same skills to dismantle the conspiracy that had tried to destroy him. The school hallways were empty as Lauren Davidson, the principal, hurried toward her office. She'd stayed late again, reviewing financial records that didn't add up. The sound of voices made her pause. Rebecca Harrison and James Cooper, coming from the direction of the boardroom. "Everything's falling into place," Rebecca was saying. "Thomas doesn't suspect a thing." Lauren slipped into a darkened classroom, leaving the door slightly ajar. She'd been watching this group for months, gathering evidence, but unsure who to trust. "Amanda's been invaluable," James replied. "The access code she provided let David's people move everything without detection. And those private conversations she recorded for Michael? Pure gold for manipulation." "She's her mother's daughter," Rebecca laughed. "She knows how to play her part." Lauren waited until their voices faded before entering her office. The documents she'd been collecting were hidden in a false bottom of her desk drawer. Evidence of inflated costs, suspicious change orders, and questionable contracts. Her computer pinged, an encrypted email from Thomas Harrison. She'd reached out to him anonymously last week, testing the waters. His response had been immediate and direct. "Meet me. Bring everything you have." The meeting location was a small coffee shop across town. Lauren arrived early, watching the entrance through the reflection in her coffee cup. Thomas Harrison entered exactly on time, his presence commanding attention without trying. "Mrs. Davidson." He sat down, placing a small device on the table, a signal jammer. "You have something for me?" Lauren slid a USB drive across the table. "Everything I've documented over the past year. Contract irregularities, inflated costs, suspicious meetings. Your wife and James Cooper have been pressuring the board to approve projects without proper oversight." Thomas's expression didn't change as she detailed the corruption. He asked precise questions, each one revealing how much he already knew. "Why are you showing me this?" he finally asked. "Because they're destroying my school." Lauren's voice shook with controlled anger. "They're using these contracts to launder money, manipulating grades, pressuring teachers. When I tried to investigate, they threatened my career." Thomas studied her for a long moment. "Tell me about Amanda's grades." "Falsified. All of them. James Cooper's been forcing teachers to change records for years. The Cornell acceptance? Complete fabrication. Amanda failed half her classes. The real ones, not the altered records." "Show me." Lauren pulled out more documents, original grade reports, teacher complaints, evidence of academic fraud. "Your daughter's been helping them, Mr. Harrison. She copies your documents, records your conversations, monitors your schedule. They use her information to coordinate everything." Thomas absorbed each detail with frightening intensity. "The other men involved, tell me about them." David Reynolds uses the construction information to rig bids. Michael Bennett coordinates equipment deliveries, but they're not just moving supplies. Richard Kane's wife helps pressure other teachers, and Stephen Phillips uses his political connections to keep everything quiet. "And my wife." Lauren hesitated. "She's the center of it all. Each man thinks he's special to her, but she's playing them all. She uses their connections, their resources, their influence. The school's just a cover for their operation." Thomas's phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. "Dad, need money for college applications. Can you transfer $5,000? He showed Lauren the message. She shook her head. "There are no applications. That money would go straight to their accounts." "Mrs. Davidson." Thomas's voice was carefully controlled. "I need access to everything. Security footage, email records, financial documents. Everything. I've been collecting it all, Lauren replied. The school's maintenance supervisor, Frank Murphy, has been helping me document their after-hours meetings. And Sarah Thompson, in IT, recovered deleted emails showing how they coordinate. Why haven't you gone to the authorities? They own half the school board. They've got connections in City Hall. I didn't know who to trust. Lauren met his gaze steadily. Until now. Thomas nodded once. You'll have protection. Continue gathering evidence, but be careful. They're watching everyone. Mr. Harrison, Lauren stopped him as he stood to leave. There's something else you should know. About Amanda. Tell me. She's not just helping them. She enjoys it. I've heard her bragging about manipulating you, laughing about how easy it is to play the devoted daughter while she helps them steal everything. Thomas's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Davidson. You've done the right thing. As he left, Lauren watched him through the window. She'd seen powerful men before, seen how they reacted to betrayal. But Thomas Harrison was different. He wasn't angry. He was calculating, methodical, deadly. Back at his office, Thomas reviewed everything Lauren had provided. The evidence supported what his team had already discovered, but added crucial details about the school's involvement. His phone rang. Brian Foster. Sir, we've confirmed Amanda's schedule. She meets with each of them regularly. Mondays, copying documents for James Cooper. Tuesdays, providing access codes to David Reynolds. Wednesdays, recording conversations for Michael Bennett. Thursdays, monitoring your schedule for Richard Kane. Fridays, gathering information for Stephen Phillips. Location patterns? Multiple sites. School offices, construction sites, private residences. They're careful, but not careful enough. We've documented everything. Thomas ended the call and pulled up the security footage from his home office. The camera he'd hidden weeks ago had captured dozens of interactions. Amanda copying documents, Rebecca coordinating with her lovers, the entire conspiracy operating under his own roof. A knock at his door, Peter Walsh. Tom, you need to see this. He placed a file on the desk. Medical records. Dr. Patricia Martinez ran the tests you requested. Discreet, just like you asked. Thomas opened the file, read the contents without expression. The DNA results confirmed what he'd begun to suspect. Amanda wasn't his daughter. James Cooper, the school board member who'd been Rebecca's first lover, was her biological father. There's more, Peter added. The school's financial secretary, Helen Carter, came forward. She has proof that Amanda's entire academic record was falsified. Not just recent grades, everything going back years. James Cooper orchestrated the whole thing. Thomas closed the file. Give me everything on Cooper. Every contract, every connection, every skeleton in his closet. Already done? Peter spread out more documents. He's been using the school board position to run a sophisticated fraud operation. The construction contracts were just part of it. As they reviewed the evidence, Thomas's phone lit up with another text from Rebecca. Don't wait up tonight. Late meeting with the charity committee. He showed it to Peter, who checked his surveillance notes. She's meeting Richard Kane tonight. Hotel downtown. Want us to intercept? No. Thomas's voice was cold. Let them think they're still in control. We're not done gathering evidence yet. The web of betrayal was expanding, revealing new layers of deception with each discovery. But Thomas Harrison wasn't just collecting evidence. He was building a case that would destroy them all. The medical lab was quiet at this late hour. Dr. Patricia Martinez, a forensic specialist recommended by Peter, had agreed to meet Thomas after hours. She placed the DNA test results on her desk with clinical precision. The results are conclusive, Mr. Harrison. The probability of paternity is 0%. Would you like me to explain the detailed genetic markers? Thomas studied the report, his expression unchanged. No need, doctor. The numbers are clear enough. There's something else. Dr. Martinez hesitated. Given the genetic markers present, I can tell you with certainty who the biological father is if you have a suspect in mind. Thomas placed a second DNA sample on her desk, a coffee cup from James Cooper's office, carefully collected by Brian's team. Dr. Martinez ran the comparison quickly, efficiently. Match confirmed. James Cooper is the biological father, probability 99.99%. Thomas absorbed this final confirmation without visible reaction. The truth he'd suspected, now proven in cold scientific fact. 18 years of lies, quantified in percentages and genetic markers. His phone buzzed. Helen Carter, the school's financial secretary, requesting an urgent meeting. He'd been expecting this call. The coffee shop was different from where he'd met Lauren Davidson, but the setup was the same. Signal jammer on the table, security in place, Brian's team watching the perimeter. Helen Carter was nervous, but determined. She placed a thick folder on the table. Everything you need to know about Amanda's academic record. Or should I say, the fiction they created? Thomas opened the folder. Years of falsified grades, forged teacher evaluations, manipulated test scores. The deception was comprehensive, professional. James Cooper orchestrated all of it, Helen explained. He has a whole system in place. They alter grades, forge recommendations, create fake achievements. Amanda's Cornell acceptance? Complete fabrication. She failed most of her real classes. Show me the original records. Helen pulled out more documents, the true grades, the real evaluations, the actual test scores. She's barely maintaining AD average. The teachers who wouldn't cooperate with grade changes were pressured to leave or threatened into silence. Who else was involved? The entire administrative network. Rebecca coordinated with the teachers. James handled the paperwork. Michael Bennett covered the athletic records. They even created fake extracurricular activities. Thomas compared the real and falsified documents. How long? From the beginning. They started altering her records in elementary school. James Cooper's been planning this for years. The pieces clicked into place. The long game they'd been playing, using his daughter as a tool to infiltrate his life and business. His phone lit up with surveillance alerts from Brian's team. Rebecca entering a hotel with Richard Kane. Amanda meeting James Cooper in a private office. David Reynolds accessing a construction site after hours. Michael Bennett coordinating another late-night delivery. Stephen Phillips making calls to political contacts. Each betrayal documented, time-stamped, recorded for evidence. Mr. Harrison, Helen's voice was quiet. There's something else you should know. Amanda, she's proud of it. She brags to other students about how she's helping them destroy you. She calls it her greatest achievement. Thomas's expression remained neutral, but his eyes turned arctic. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. You've been very helpful. Back in his office, Thomas reviewed everything they'd uncovered. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA proof that Amanda wasn't his daughter. Comprehensive academic fraud spanning years. Financial crimes through construction contracts. Evidence of systematic betrayal by family and associates. A network of corruption centered around the school. Peter Walsh arrived with the final pieces of surveillance. We've mapped out their entire operation, Tom. Every meeting, every transaction, every player involved. Thomas spread the evidence across his desk, each piece fitting into a larger puzzle of betrayal. The security footage showed Amanda accessing his office late at night, copying sensitive documents. Financial records revealed the complex web of kickbacks and fraudulent contracts. Email transcripts proved the coordination between Rebecca's lovers. They thought they were clever, Peter noted, watching his friend analyze the evidence. Compartmentalizing information, using the school as cover, manipulating your trust and family. Thomas's phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. Dad, can we talk about Cornell? I need to discuss the financial arrangements. He showed the message to Peter, who shook his head. More manipulation. They're still trying to extract money for their schemes. Let them think it's working, Thomas replied, his voice carrying the cold precision of a tactical assessment. They believe their plan is foolproof because they're watching me. They don't realize I've been watching them. Maria Ramirez entered with fresh financial analysis. The money trail is clear now. They've been laundering funds through school renovation projects, athletic equipment purchases, charitable donations, construction contracts, private tutoring programs. Brian Foster added his latest surveillance report. We've documented every meeting location, every participant, every exchange of information. The school's security footage from Frank Murphy confirms everything. Thomas studied the complete picture they'd assembled. The betrayal was total, the deception absolute. His wife, his daughter, his business associates, all part of a calculated plan to destroy everything he'd built. Sir, Brian hesitated. There's one more thing. We found this in Amanda's private email account. He handed over a printed conversation between Amanda and James Cooper. The exchange revealed the true depth of their contempt. Amanda actually believes I'm going to Cornell. Dad's so desperate to believe his little girl is special. It's pathetic. Cooper, you've done well, princess. Just keep playing the devoted daughter a little longer. Soon you won't have to pretend anymore. Amanda, I can't wait. Living in this house, pretending to respect him. It makes me sick. At least Mom found better men to spend time with. Thomas read the exchange without changing expression. The final proof that the daughter he'd raised, the family he'd provided for, the trust he'd extended, all of it had been a calculated deception. What's our next move? Peter asked, watching his friend carefully. Thomas gathered the evidence, the DNA results, the academic records, the financial documents, the surveillance photos, the email transcripts. Each piece represented a different facet of betrayal. Each document a nail in the coffin of his old life. Now, Thomas said, his voice carrying the same authority that had built his empire, we prepare for their destruction. He turned to his team, each member waiting for instructions. The evidence was gathered, the truth exposed. The investigation phase was complete. What would follow would change lives, destroy careers, and dismantle a corrupt network that had dared to betray Thomas Harrison. But those consequences belonged to the next act of this story. For now, Thomas surveyed the arsenal of evidence they'd assembled, each piece methodically gathered, each fact verified, each betrayal documented. The trap was set, the prey was confident, and the hunter was ready. The truth had been written in blood, his blood, used by his supposed family to authenticate their lies. Now it would be used to fuel their destruction, but that would be another chapter in this tale of revenge. The conference room in Harrison Construction's main office hummed with focused energy as Thomas Harrison orchestrated the final phase of his response. Maria Ramirez sat surrounded by stacks of financial documents, each one a weapon in their arsenal. The audit trails are complete, Maria reported, her fingers moving across her keyboard with precision. I've mapped every fraudulent transaction. School renovation contracts inflated by 40%. Equipment purchases with phantom deliveries. Charitable donations rerouted to private accounts. Construction kickbacks disguised as consulting fees. Hidden payments to shell companies. Thomas examined the financial web she'd uncovered. Show me the money laundering pattern. Maria pulled up a complex diagram. They used the school's charitable foundation as a front. Donations went in clean, came out dirty through. Fake construction projects. Inflated supply orders. Non-existent educational programs. Consulting contracts for services never rendered. Peter Walsh entered, carrying thick legal files. The criminal cases are ready. We got them on? Multiple counts of bid rigging. Document forgery across state lines. Educational fraud. Misappropriation of public funds. Wire fraud. Conspiracy charges. Evidence chain? Thomas demanded. Rock solid. Every document authenticated. Every witness statement notarized. Every financial record verified. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is standing by. Lauren Davidson arrived next, bringing her own collection of evidence. The teachers are ready to testify. I've got signed statements about forced grade changes, pressure to falsify records, witnessed inappropriate meetings, documented extortion attempts. She spread photographs across the table. Rebecca's meetings with various board members, James Cooper's late-night visits to empty classrooms, Amanda accessing restricted areas after hours. Parents have come forward too, Lauren continued. They were forced to make donations to keep their children's grades up. I have recorded conversations, bank transfers, written threats. Thomas absorbed each piece of information with military precision. Timeline? Graduation ceremony is in 3 days, Peter confirmed. All players will be present. FBI teams are coordinated. Local police are on standby. Media coverage? Thomas's question was pointed. Anonymous tips sent to key reporters. Brian Foster replied, entering with fresh surveillance photos. They'll be there to document everything. No warning to the targets. Thomas pulled up the school's graduation program on a large screen. Walk me through positions. Peter indicated various points on the diagram. FBI teams here, here, and here. Local police units on all exits. Media will have clear sight lines from these positions. Every target's movement is mapped. Security? Thomas demanded. Their private security teams are compromised, Brian reported. We've got their routes, schedules, and contingency plans. They won't interfere. Maria looked up from her computer. Final financial transfers are tracked. The moment this breaks, their accounts freeze. No escape routes. Lauren checked her phone. Teachers are prepared. When you make your move, they'll secure their records and protect the students. We've identified every compromised transcript, every altered grade. Thomas surveyed his team. Each person represented a different aspect of the justice about to be served. Maria with her forensic financial evidence. Peter with his legal framework. Lauren with her institutional documentation. Brian with his surveillance network. Walk through, Thomas commanded. Every step. They spent hours reviewing the plan. Each movement was calculated, each response anticipated. Thomas's military training showed in the precision of the coordination. Sir, Brian interrupted. Live feed from the school. The screen showed Rebecca in the auditorium, directing graduation preparations. Amanda stood nearby, laughing with James Cooper as they reviewed the program. They're adding last-minute speakers, Lauren reported. Rebecca plans to announce Amanda's Cornell acceptance during the ceremony. She's invited major donors and press. Thomas's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held dangerous focus. Perfect. Let them build their moment. It makes the fall more complete. What about Amanda? Lauren asked carefully. Some of the students may be affected by the revelations. Every student who had grades altered will be offered legitimate evaluation and support, Thomas stated. The innocent won't suffer for others' crimes. Maria raised a concern. The financial implications will be extensive. The school's reputation will be rebuilt on truth, Thomas cut in. Lauren's team will handle the transition. Every legitimate grade stands, every fraudulent one reviewed. No student's future destroyed by their corruption. Peter's phone buzzed. FBI confirmation. Teams are ready, warrant secured. They're waiting for your signal. Thomas stood, his presence commanding the room. The man who'd built an empire through trust and personal oversight was now using those same skills to destroy those who'd betrayed him. Review your positions, he ordered. Check every detail. In 3 days, we dismantle their world. Dismissed. As his team dispersed, Peter stayed behind. Tom, you know they'll try to spin this. Claim you're the villain destroying the school. Thomas's laugh held no humor. Let them try. The evidence speaks for itself. I'm not destroying the school. I'm excising a cancer. And Rebecca? Amanda? They made their choices. Thomas's voice was implacable. Now they faced the consequences. The next 3 days passed in careful preparation. Thomas maintained his normal routine, giving his enemies no hint of what was coming. He attended meetings, visited construction sites, signed contracts. Rebecca continued her deception, sending casual texts about graduation preparations. Amanda asked for more money for college expenses. Each lie was documented. Each betrayal added to the evidence. The night before graduation, Thomas reviewed everything one final time. The trap was set, the evidence overwhelming, the justice inevitable. Tomorrow would bring the end of everything his betrayers had built. Let them enjoy their final hours of triumph, he thought. Let them believe their lies would stand forever. Tomorrow they would learn why crossing Thomas Harrison was the last mistake they'd ever make. The school auditorium buzzed with graduation day energy. Parents filled the seats, teachers arranged their students, and photographers set up their equipment. On stage, Rebecca Harrison glowed with practice charm as she directed last-minute preparations. Thomas sat in the front row, watching his wife work the crowd. She'd chosen an expensive designer suit for the occasion, playing her role as the respected teacher and proud mother. Beside him, Peter Walsh monitored their synchronized watches. Teams in position, Peter murmured. FBI units confirmed, local police standing by. Press is here. Quality investigative reporters, not just society page. Thomas nodded once, his attention on Amanda as she took her place with the other graduates. She wore her honor student cords with smug confidence, unknowing that each thread represented another lie about to unravel. James Cooper approached the podium, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. Welcome, parents and honored guests. Today we celebrate not just academic achievement, but the values of integrity and excellence that our school represents. The irony made Peter shift slightly, but Thomas remained still. Let them hang themselves with their own words. Rebecca took the microphone next. As both a teacher and a parent, this day holds special meaning. My daughter Amanda. Thomas stood. The movement was so deliberate, so commanding, that Rebecca faltered mid-sentence. In the sudden silence, his voice carried clearly through the auditorium. Yes, let's talk about Amanda. He turned to face the crowd, his presence drawing all eyes. Let's talk about integrity and excellence. Thomas? Rebecca's voice held a warning note. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time. He held up a folder. Before you announce Amanda's acceptance to Cornell, perhaps we should discuss her actual grades. The room stilled. On stage, James Cooper took a half-step forward, but Thomas's next words froze him. Or better yet, let's discuss paternity. Amanda's face drained of color. Rebecca grabbed the podium for support as Thomas continued, his voice carrying to every corner. Well, you won't have to worry about my name anymore. You're just another bastard from your mother's collection. I've already removed you from my will. Go beg your real father. He lifted the DNA results. Speaking of fathers, James Cooper, I believe these will interest you. Chaos erupted in controlled waves. FBI agents emerged from side doors. Police officers moved to block exits. School board officials rushed forward with warrants. Parents surged to their feet demanding answers. Students watched in shocked silence as their world unraveled. This institution, Thomas's voice cut through the noise, has been corrupted by fraud, manipulation, and criminal conspiracy. Rebecca tried to reach the exit but found her path blocked. You can't prove anything. Actually, Peter stepped forward, badge displayed. We can prove everything. The evidence unfolded with military precision. Financial records displayed on the auditorium screens. Surveillance photos distributed to the press. Arrest warrants served with methodical efficiency. Student transcripts marked for review. Bank accounts frozen in real time. James Cooper attempted to maintain control. This is ridiculous. You demand nothing. Thomas cut him off. The FBI has some demands of their own. Fraud charges, for a start. Amanda stood frozen in her graduation robe, watching her carefully constructed world collapse. Dad, please. I'm not your dad. Thomas's voice held no warmth. The man you've been helping destroy? Not your father. The man who's been falsifying your grades and manufacturing your achievements? That's your father. Police led James Cooper away in handcuffs as Peter continued making arrests. Richard Kane, surgical privileges already suspended. Michael Bennett, stripped of his educational credentials. David Reynolds, development licenses revoked. Stephen Phillips, political career ending in real time. Parents demanded answers about their children's records. Teachers came forward with evidence of coercion. Students learned their transcripts would require review. Through it all, Thomas Harrison stood unmoved, watching justice unfold with the same precision he'd once used to build his empire. Rebecca made one last attempt. You're destroying everything. Think about what? Thomas's questions silenced the room. About the family that betrayed me? The wife who mocked me? The daughter who helped steal from me? The friends who conspired against me? He turned to address the crowd. Every legitimate grade will stand. Every honest student will be protected. This institution will be cleansed of corruption and rebuilt on truth. The media captured everything. FBI agents leading away prominent community members. School officials securing records. Parents demanding accountability. Students learning the truth about their education. Thomas watched as his carefully orchestrated justice played out. The trap had sprung perfectly, each betrayer caught in their own web of lies. 1 year later, Thomas Harrison stood in his office at Harrison Construction, reviewing the final reports of his company's most successful quarter yet. The wall behind him displayed framed newspaper headlines. School corruption ring exposed. Construction fraud scheme dismantled. Education reform following scandal. Harrison leads industry in transparency. Maria Ramirez entered, carrying fresh audit reports. She'd parlayed her role in exposing the corruption into a thriving forensic accounting firm, now handling oversight for multiple educational institutions. The last appeals were denied, she reported. Final sentencing complete. Rebecca, multiple fraud charges, significant prison time. James Cooper, education fraud conviction, maximum sentence. David Reynolds, all development licenses permanently revoked. Michael Bennett, banned from educational field for life. Richard Kane, medical license suspended indefinitely. Stephen Phillips, political career destroyed, facing additional charges. Thomas nodded, examining the documents. The legal consequences had been comprehensive, destroying not just careers but entire corrupt networks. Lauren Davidson, now superintendent, arrived for their regular meeting. Under her leadership, the school had undergone complete restructuring. New administrative protocols, transparent grading systems, independent oversight committees, enhanced security measures. The last affected transcripts have been reviewed, she reported. Every student received fair evaluation. Those who needed support got it. Those who earned their grades kept them. Peter Walsh joined them, his promotion to department chief reflecting his role in breaking the case. The ripple effects continue. 3 other schools discovered similar schemes. They're implementing your oversight protocols now. Thomas studied the city skyline his company had helped build. Harrison Construction had emerged stronger, its reputation for integrity enhanced by his role as whistleblower. The legitimate partnerships? He inquired. Strengthened, Maria confirmed. Your transparency initiatives are becoming industry standard. The new contracts are all verified, Thomas completed. Personally, he opened his safe, removing 2 items: the DNA test results and a photo from Amanda's first day of school. They represented different kinds of truth, one scientific, one emotional. Both had been tools of justice. The lessons were clear. Trust must be earned. Loyalty must be verified. Justice, while patient, is inevitable. Thomas Harrison had rebuilt his empire on those principles, stronger and more secure than before. The betrayers who thought him weak had learned too late. Valuing trust doesn't make a man weak. It makes his revenge more complete when that trust is betrayed. The photo and DNA results went back in the safe. They were reminders now, nothing more. The man who'd trusted family and friends had been replaced by one who verified everything, trusted nothing to chance. His empire stood stronger than ever, built on the ruins of those who tried to destroy it. In the end, Thomas Harrison had proved that true strength lies not in avoiding betrayal, but in how you make the betrayers pay. Epilogue: a decade of consequences. 10 years had transformed the Boston skyline, and Harrison Construction's new headquarters dominated the view. The building represented everything Thomas Harrison had rebuilt: stronger, more secure, and utterly impregnable to betrayal. At 65, Thomas hadn't softened. His hair had grayed, but his presence still commanded instant respect as he reviewed quarterly reports with Maria Ramirez's forensic accounting team. Harrison Construction had grown from a $50 million company to a $2 billion empire, specializing in government contracts and institutional oversight. The latest audit protocols are being implemented nationwide, Maria reported, her own firm now the gold standard in educational financial oversight. 12 more schools adopted our transparency system last quarter. Thomas studied the numbers with the same precision that had exposed his betrayers a decade ago. Show me the verification matrices. The morning's reports painted a clear picture of how far-reaching his revenge had become. Rebecca Harrison remained in federal prison, serving year 10 of her 20-year sentence for fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Her attempts at early release had been systematically blocked by evidence of additional schemes discovered during her incarceration. The woman who once mocked her husband's trust now spent her days in an 8x10 cell, her designer suits replaced by prison gray. She tried writing another appeal letter, Peter Walsh mentioned, entering the office. Now the FBI's regional director of financial crimes, he kept close tabs on all the players from a decade ago. Claims she's found God, wants redemption. Thomas's laugh held no humor. Send it to the same place as the others, evidence storage. Let her redemption come from facing consequences. James Cooper had fared even worse. The DNA proof of his paternity had opened doors to decades of earlier fraud. Prosecutors found similar schemes at 3 other schools where he'd served on boards. His prison sentence had been extended multiple times as new evidence emerged. Cooper's prison interview request was denied again, Peter added, still trying to pitch his story to true crime producers. Nobody's interested in another corrupt administrator's excuses. The other conspirators had met their own forms of justice. David Reynolds, stripped of his development licenses, had tried rebuilding in another state. Thomas's network of construction industry contacts had ensured his reputation followed. The man now worked as a low-level site inspector, his dreams of real estate empire permanently shattered. Michael Bennett's ban from education had extended nationwide. The former athletic director now managed a small-town gym, his attempts to re-enter academic administration blocked at every turn by Lauren Davidson's Educational Oversight Committee. Richard Kane had lost not just his medical license, but his entire practice. His wife, who had helped pressure teachers, found herself socially ostracized. They'd moved to a small Midwest town, their Boston society connections permanently severed. Stephen Phillips's political ambitions had ended in complete disgrace. The hedge fund manager had tried running for local office in another state, only to have his past exposed by one of Maria's routine financial audits. He now worked as a junior analyst at a small firm, his dreams of political power reduced to managing office supply budgets. The real success story is the school system, Lauren Davidson observed, joining the morning briefing. As superintendent of a now expanded district, she'd transformed educational oversight. Our transparency protocols have become the national standard. 17 states have adopted our verification systems. Thomas nodded, remembering how they'd rebuilt from the ashes of corruption. Every compromised transcript had been reviewed. Affected students received proper evaluation and support. New administrative systems prevented grade manipulation. Financial oversight protocols caught irregularities instantly. Independent committees monitored all administrative decisions. Amanda, the daughter who'd betrayed him, had faced her own decade of consequences. Without fake transcripts or corrupt support, she'd failed to maintain her fraudulent academic career. James Cooper, her biological father, had been unable to help from prison. She now worked as a data entry clerk in Nevada, her dreams of social climbing destroyed by her own exposed deceptions. She tried applying for a teaching position last month, Lauren reported. Our background check system flagged her immediately. No educational institution in the country will hire anyone connected to that scandal. The betrayers had learned too late that crossing Thomas Harrison meant not just immediate consequences, but a lifetime of closed doors. His revenge hadn't been a single act, but a systematic dismantling of their entire world. Frank Murphy, the maintenance supervisor who'd helped expose the corruption, now headed facility operations for the entire school district. Sarah Thompson, the IT specialist who'd recovered crucial emails, had parlayed her skills into a successful cybersecurity firm specializing in educational institutions. Helen Carter, the financial secretary whose evidence had proved crucial, had retired comfortably after helping implement new oversight systems. Her detailed documentation had become a case study in detecting educational fraud. The Harrison oversight model is being implemented in corporate governance now, Maria noted, pulling up new reports. 3 Fortune 500 companies adopted our verification protocols last quarter. Thomas's methodical destruction of the corruption network had transformed into a blueprint for institutional integrity. The man who'd valued personal oversight had created systems that made betrayal nearly impossible. Real-time financial monitoring, multi-level verification protocols, independent oversight committees, systematic background checks, comprehensive audit trails. Peter Walsh's department had expanded, specializing in educational and institutional fraud. We prevented 12 similar schemes in the Northeast alone. Your case is required study at Quantico now. The investigation team had all prospered. Maria Ramirez's firm handled oversight for institutions nationwide. Brian Foster's private investigation agency specialized in corporate corruption. Lauren Davidson consulted for educational systems internationally. Peter Walsh headed the FBI's expanded financial crimes division. Thomas's revenge had evolved into a legacy of institutional reform. The systems he'd built to track betrayers now protected thousands from similar schemes. His phone buzzed, another appeal notice from Rebecca's lawyer. He added it to his evidence file without reading it. Let her spend another decade understanding the cost of betrayal. Sir, his assistant interrupted. The governor's office called. They want you to head the new state education oversight committee. Thomas allowed himself a small smile. His enemies had thought him weak for valuing trust and personal oversight. They'd never understood that these weren't weaknesses but tools, deadly effective when turned against those who betrayed them. The Boston skyline continued to evolve, each new building bearing witness to proper oversight and verification. Thomas Harrison had transformed personal vengeance into institutional reform, his revenge reaching far beyond the original betrayers. In his private office safe, he still kept two items: the DNA test results and Amanda's school photo, not as reminders of pain, but as proof that justice, properly executed, creates permanent change. The betrayers who'd once mocked his methods now served as cautionary tales. Their lives had become testimonies to a fundamental truth. Crossing Thomas Harrison didn't just destroy your present, it eliminated your future. His empire had grown beyond construction into oversight and verification systems. The man who'd trusted personally now built systems that made trust verifiable, his revenge evolving into a legacy that would outlast all of them. The afternoon sun reflected off his building's windows, each pane as impervious to corruption as the systems he'd built. Thomas Harrison's response to betrayal hadn't just destroyed his enemies, it had transformed industries. Let Rebecca contemplate that from her prison cell, he thought. Let Amanda remember it with every job application rejected. Let James Cooper consider it as his appeals failed again and again. They'd thought him weak for valuing trust. They'd never understood that a man who values trust knows exactly how to destroy those who betray it. The legacy of his revenge would far outlast the betrayers' lives. In the end, Thomas Harrison hadn't just destroyed those who betrayed him. He'd built something stronger from the ruins of their deception. His phone buzzed again, another school district adopting his oversight protocols. Another institution protected from the kind of betrayal he'd faced. Another piece of his legacy expanding. The betrayers had tried to destroy his empire. Instead, they'd helped him build a larger one, founded on the ashes of their destruction. It was, Thomas reflected, the perfect revenge, one that grew stronger with each passing year. In his safe, beside the DNA test and photo, he kept one more item, the original evidence file that had exposed their scheme. Not because he needed it anymore, but because it marked the beginning of something larger, the moment personal revenge transformed into institutional change. The sun set over Boston, his building's shadow touching the school where it had all begun. Everything had changed in the decades since his revenge, but one thing remained constant. The price of betraying Thomas Harrison was eternal, and the consequences outlived the betrayers. It was, he decided, exactly as it should be. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.